Why am I reviewing the new Jack White album? I mean, my rock videos in general, they don't get a lot of clicks. I don't do this for clicks, but in general, my rock videos don't do super well. I just did a video on Parannoul, which is another rock album. It's not doing super well. Even if I'm trying to do something new and different, by covering rock music, just earlier this week, I reviewed the King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard album. And in that review, I tried to answer the question, what is the place, or is there any place in 2024 for blues rock? The kind of guitar-based, loose, hard, simple, riff-inspired music that's, like heavily indebted to, Led Zeppelin. That's then, in turn, heavily indebted to Muddy Waters, Willie Dixon, and Howlin' Wolf, and all that. I really meditated on that because part of me feels like there is no place for blues-based rock. It can't possibly still be good. So why would I be reviewing a second blues-based rock album within a week? Well, it's because it's a good album. So that's the long and the short of it. I like to review good music, and it's good. And also, I feel bad. I understand. If you look up Jack White, his net worth on that website that lies about celebrities' net worth, it says he's worth $70 million. So, that seems like a lot of money. But not since the Mildred sisters. Not since, Patty and Mildred Hill has any artist been more ripped off and less compensated for their work. Patty and Mildred Hill wrote the Happy Birthday song, and I would say creeping up in the top 5 of most recognized melodies in the entire world is Seven Nation Army by Jack White. Do, 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 do. At this point, it seems that on any given Sunday or Saturday that there's like 1 million people singing his song, like not just like listening to, but actively performing it. And he doesn't get a dime. So maybe because of that. But no, it's because it's a good album. And in an alternate timeline, okay? If this were some kind of Spider-Verse situation and there was a different Professor Skye, I probably would have called this the album of the year. And I will describe that alternate timeline. It doesn't exist here. This is not my album of the year. I like it quite a bit. It might win a category in the year-end Stampies. I don't know. But for now, let's just put a pin in the alternate. Put a pin. Jesus. Let's circle back to that. Let's use synergy and more business speak, and I'll describe the alternate Skye later. Thank you for auditing the Always Positive New Music Review Show, hosted by a French professor who's going to get into some story time. So you can jump in the comments if you want. In the top of the description, I'll put a link to where my review actually begins. But I think it's interesting, I hope it's interesting, to sort of follow the musical journey of a dude in his mid-40s as I've processed my life through music. And how have I processed my life through Jack White and through the White Stripes, okay? So I talk a lot about mid-20s music death. And around 2002, I think it must have been 2002, I was 25 years old, 25 years old, and I had already begun the slow process of mid-20s music death. I talk about that a lot on this channel. That's the point where when you're out of college for a year, a couple years, you all of a sudden have less access to fun people, to interesting experiences. You spend more time in offices, working for PR firms, calling Canada and seeing if they have the same roster at their newspaper. You end up in processing resumes at special needs schools in the Bay Area. These are all things that I did, and you sort of lose that vital touch, that vital connection to music. So I was teaching at a summer camp in France, a camp where you had to pretend like you didn't speak French so that kids could learn English. In the western France, in the Vendée region. And it was good. It was an interesting experience. And if you ever work at a camp, there's people who worked different seasons or different sessions, and they're kind of like legends. Like, oh, you should have hung out with, oh, they were the best. No, they left, but they were the best. So one time I was working, and these two, all you can really call them as rock stars. And this was like the Kurt and Courtney of American Village. These were just like the coolest people. They were around for maybe 48 hours, a dude and his girlfriend. Now the girlfriend was very nice, very interesting. She had the peculiar habit or insistence that when she said she was done, like when she said she was tired, if you did not get her immediately out of that situation, she would just fall asleep on the spot. And it's not like, I don't think it was actually narcolepsy. So we went out and got this wonderful orange duck. It's maybe the best meal I've ever had. We're having a nice time. We're sitting around a table, we're talking, and bam, she just goes out. So that's her. But it's really the guy in the relationship who I'm interested in, because he arrived at this important part of my life. And in this important part of it, he had a guitar on his back, and I had a guitar. I always traveled with my my travel guitar with Leroy. And he basically was sort of a guru. And I mean, he wasn't as annoying, but in a way, he was kind of like Jack Black's character from School of Rock. Like, he had this knowledge and this love of rock and roll, and it was infectious. Not just new stuff, but old stuff. He was the guy that got me to get a Sonics CD. He played some Sonics for me, and I sort of understood the kind of cool, awesome, raw garage sound of the Sonics and how that could be. He taught me how to play Dead Flowers by the Rolling Stones. It's a very simple song, but still, he taught me how to play it. I still play that song probably 20 times a year on guitar, if not more. And I hope you know it was leading to this. He also said there's this band that maybe you haven't heard of. Now, if I had been in college, of course I would have heard of the White Stripes in 2002. But I wasn't in college. Okay, I was processing resumes at a special needs school in Oakland. Okay, that's what I was doing. So I was not at all ready for there to be good new music. And so he told me there's this group out of Detroit, and they're called the White Stripes, and they make this really great music, and there's 2 people in it, and it's unclear if they're brother and sister or if they're married. I still don't know the answer to that question, by the way. You can tell me in the comments. Were they married? Were they brother and sister? I actually still do not know 25 years later. So he played me some of their music, and I got really excited, and I went back home and I bought De Stijl on CD. This is not De Stijl. I don't know where De Stijl is. My copy of De Stijl has been lost to time, so here's my copy of Icky Thump. And a thing happened where I liked it, but I didn't love it. Now, I don't know if I didn't love it because I was a hipster, and hipsters hate other hipsters, and Jack White is nothing if not a hipster, so maybe that was it. Maybe I hated the thing that I saw inside myself. Maybe I just thought that there was too much affect with the red and the white and the black, and are they married, are they not? Or I don't know. I don't know what it was, but I basically just lost touch. I didn't buy Elephant. You see Elephant back there. I didn't buy that when it came out. I didn't really follow them. I was just basically done. And then a little bit later, I ended up getting the Michel Gondry box set. If you don't know, Michel Gondry is probably my favorite video director. He did the Around the World video, great crazy French jazz nut job. And he did a bunch of videos for White Stripes, and I was watching that with my kids. And so all of a sudden, my son, my 3-year-old son, just loves this. He connects to this music. He connects to the hardest button to button in a way that is evident. It's just why was I being such a hipster? Why was I fighting this music so much? It was just great. And so in addition to, listening to Radiohead and all the other stuff we listened to in the house, we ended up listening to a lot of the White Stripes. And I do have a clip. I do have a clip of my son. This is on my original YouTube channel way before this one. And why I ended up loving Jack White in particular, because of what my son called him back then. He's about 3 years old here.
Who plays drums?
Led White.
And who plays guitar? And sings?
White Jack.
So he always called him White Jack. And I just find that very funny. Kids don't always know where adjectives go. They're supposed to go before. So he should be White Jack. But how come it's not White Meg? I don't know. There's also a fun clip of us playing Hardest Button to Button. You kind of see us here. it goes on like that for minutes and minutes and minutes. I'll include a link to that in the description as well. But what my son taught me was to, hey, shut up and just enjoy this great, raw, awesome, well-constructed, catchy, fun music. So that was why I bought Elephant on vinyl for $5 at a yard sale. $5, I can't believe it. And as time went on, I just paid a little bit of attention. I wasn't like super into it. It wasn't like my favorite thing in the whole world, but I had that respect. The respect that came out of nowhere and then was taken away for no good reason was restored. We went and saw the movie It Might Get Loud the day it came out. We went down to the movie theaters in Ventura, California, and if you've never seen it, I hadn't thought about this movie in like 15 years, and then Lil Bill, the YouTuber, mentioned it, and I'm like, what the hell, you know? I guess that's what it's like, because I make a lot of references that no one expects me to make in a video. You know, I'll be like, "Ba-da-ba-da-ba, it's like the character from Homestar Runner," you know, like I'll just make these random things. So it's this very, very fun moment. And then in 2011, we went to Third Man Records, and this is probably where I fell out of the Jack White-verse, the White Jack verse, because of what happened in 2011. Now, we went to Tennessee, which is a great place to go for music. Probably, in my opinion, the most important, like the best tourist attraction. If you're not from America and you want to go to the most interesting city in America, go to Memphis. It has so many interesting things. It has Stax Records, it has Sun Records, it has obviously Graceland. It has all this great music, vitality. It's got a lot of great food. It's a great place. But of course, we went to Nashville as well. And when we were there, we went to Third Man Records, because what else are you going to do if you're a couple of hipsters, you know? So we went, and we got some 7 inches, you know. Karen Elson, who I think was maybe married to White Jack at the time. I don't know if she changed her last name to Jack. So, you know, this is good. That Karen Elson album was good. I was in my mid-20s music death, but I was able to connect to that. This like super awesome Carl Sagan remix album. I don't know. We got that. The pick of the litter was the Secret Sisters. My God, this is just great, you know? So like I was kind of in the White Jackaverse because I was really appreciating the music that he was producing. I mean, not just for his wife, but I mean, the Secret Sisters were this great band that was doing this kind of retro rock, rockabilly, country sort of stuff that like I wish existed. I had first gone to Nashville a decade earlier and went to the Country Music Hall of Fame and fell in love with Hank Williams. And I had this feeling that like there used to be a way that music used to be made and it wasn't made that way anymore. And White Jack is right there. And White Jack is really doing it. He's really doing it. He's doing his absolute best to make this stuff happen and to preserve this and to preserve the old ways. But then like we went outside, and if you go to Third Man Records in Nashville, there's like a train track right near it. And like, there's this unhoused guy, or maybe not, maybe he had a house and he just looked really rough, but he like got hit by a train. So not dead, no blood, no human death here. It was like, I don't know if he was trying to jump onto the train or jump onto the front of the train. It wasn't going very fast, but he like hits the train, or the train hits him, and then he falls on the ground. And he's kind of rolling around there moaning, and then we go over and see him, and it turns out he's all right, and he like tells us his name, and it's like last name is Boatwright, and it all just felt like a weird affect. It felt like a Jack White song, a kind of retro song about some old train hopping drifter who gets hit by a train and his last name is Boatwright. And I don't know. It all just ended up being too mixed up. So those are most of my White Jack stories. The main issue, though, that I have is the same issue I have with the other half of the gray men. So I call them the gray men, the white stripes, and the black keys. And the question is, are artists responsible for the music that they inspire? Are they responsible? Because, you know, I talk all the time, rock and roll is not dead, but it's really only, in my opinion, post-punk rock that is not dead. The things that post-punk does by adding extra elements, by sort of playing around with the role of the lead singer a little bit more interesting ways and different instrumentation and different influences, that's where, in my opinion, all of the great rock and roll is happening. what that's left is this blues rock, this riff-based, loosey, very, very inspired by Led Zeppelin and therefore by Muddy Waters and all that stuff and Howlin' Wolf. As I just call it Home Depot music. You know that theme song? That kind of, or like honey whiskey music, like Jack Daniels and Jim Beam both released whiskeys with just a ton of sugar in them, and then they have these advertisements, and because they're trying to advertise to men with a sense of low self-esteem and a belief that they're not masculine enough, so what they have to do is they have to advertise to men who think incorrectly that drinking whiskey imbues you with some amount of masculinity. It doesn't. They call it whiskey dick for a reason, genius, but that doesn't matter. They think that if they drink whiskey, that makes them hard. But they're Americans. They've been socialized to want sugar and salt in everything that they eat and drink, okay? They can't go 5 minutes without eating some processed sugar. So how do you satisfy the consumer while also helping him believe that he is getting some kind of masculinity through his consumption habits? Well, Fireball Whiskey figured it out, and then Jim Beam figured it out, and then that, and all of the soundtracks to all those honey whiskeys, the same kind of guitar-based blues driffy. You're gonna want to drink this. You're gonna want to drink this bad. Jim Beam, cotton candy whiskey, you pussy. Okay, that's what the advertisements are like to me. And there's a whole sphere of advertising music to men, including things like grooming products. You know, all the grooming products are like, you know, Hungry Jack, Bigfoot, face punching, kangaroo, karate face, you know, and it's just like, just use moisturizer, man, it's okay. I use moisturizer like 5 times a day, you know, it's okay. So that's what's happened to blues rock. And in particular, the kind of blues rock that the White Stripes and the Black Keys ushered in the early 2000s created, I don't know, some kind of permission structure. And so I've had a hard time forgiving them for that, because I don't want to buy a lawnmower. I don't want to listen to an album and then have a desire to go buy a lawnmower, you know? And it just kind of ties into this whole thing, like the kind of dudes who really love the Black Keys, the kind of dudes who really like White Jack, and you know, it's like, you know, your goal should be, as you get older, to be the old guy at the concert, okay? That's where you want to be, you know, like me and my friend Matt at the Playboy Cardi concert. That's how you want to be, okay? That's the goal. You should look around and go, geez, I'm bringing the median age of this thing down by like, up by like 40 years. Okay? You shouldn't be, in my opinion, I enjoy concerts less when I look around and everybody's my age or older. Because it just sort of feels like, I mean, it's fine for the music, but then like the try-hard t-shirts, you know, where like someone will have a t-shirt and it'll be like, you know, of Jack White's last tour, and you know, he'll get a couple head nods. Then someone will have like a t-shirt from like a 2007 White Stripes tour, and then that kind of gets the sort of nerdy, like, I see that. And then you have just like the painful other band t-shirt at the band where you're trying to like signal what kind of White Stripes or Jack White or White Jack fan you are by saying what's the other music you like. So are you the kind of guy who goes to the Jack White concert wearing a Wilco t-shirt or a Black Keys t-shirt or a Led Zeppelin t-shirt, but not one that you got at Target, one that you got a long time ago? You know, like what kind of performative masculinity through music t-shirts are you going to perform? These are the kinds of questions I want to avoid when listening to good music. Which brings us back to the fact, hi, are you back? I just told 10 minutes of nonsense stories. I thought they were nice. I thought they were fun. Not everybody does, so that's cool. Let's get back to what makes this album so good. It's just White Jack doing what White Jack does. Just full of great riffs, super well made. The singing is passionate. He's invested. I know that he looks up to Led Zeppelin, but I don't think he's destroying his voice with drugs and alcohol. At least doesn't sound it. The musicianship is just right. So, you know, Jack White is like one of the biggest rock stars in the world. He can get any musician that he wants. He can work with anybody. He can work with whatever, Omar Hakim if he wants. He can work with whoever the hell the new Jaco Pastorius is if he wants to. You know, he can do that. But he's working with musicians who are very capable. It's not You know, it's not the Meg White thing of sort of intentionally working with somebody. She's a very good drummer, by the way. She's not technically proficient, but she's a very good drummer. Those are not always the same thing. But she's not, you know, he's not just trying to find people who can just kind of bash, and he's not finding people who are too much there. And it's so well produced. Just the sound of the album is very satisfying. It's like his voice can go between kind of like hard and emphatic and almost screaming. There's even, I think, there's a lot of hip hop influence on this album, which I'll get into relatively soon. I don't know what the album is about, but I'm going to be honest, I don't know what Elephant is about. I don't know what Distill is about. I don't know if Jack White is about anything other than just kind of rock, just making rock. I mean, I guess some of it's about hypocrites, which is kind of cute, you know, just like songs about hypocrites. That used to be a big thing back in the day. There's not a lot of love songs. There's not a lot of sort of personal songs. I don't really get a sense of who he is, except sort of rocky, rock. Of my favorite things to do when I talk about bands from the 90s or bands from the 2000s is to put it into proper perspective. Because we live in the shadow of the 60s. We cannot get out of the shadow of the 60s. And when you do that, you lose track of the fact that bands these days are way better at staying relevant for longer periods of time. We need to give them credit. So I made my video about the Strokes, one of my first successful big videos, and I said that they were better than the Rolling Stones 25 years into their career. Okay? Because that's the way to think about it. Don't compare peak Rolling Stones to peak the Strokes, because that's just ridiculous. They're never going to win. But, you know, I'd rather listen to the Strokes' last album than Steel Wheels, okay? I did the same thing with the Beach Boys, saying that they were not as good as the Fleet Foxes 25 years in. And it's now been 25 years since the first White Stripes album, since the first White Jack album. What was Led Zeppelin doing 25 years after Led Zeppelin 1? I'll tell you. They were getting ready to go on the Page Plant, Don't Call John Paul Jones, Leave John Paul Jones on Red tour, okay? I saw the tour at Boston Garden. A band called Rusted Root opened up for them. Maybe the least pleasant opening experience I've ever seen. God damn, I hated that band. I'm such a hipster, I hated Rusted Root before they got big. You know, so like that's what they were up to, Page and Plant. Just performing their old songs. Now, yeah, I guess the Outrider soundtrack by Jimmy Page was okay, and obviously Coverdale Page was an interesting project from earlier in the decade, and Robert Plant made some good solo stuff in the 80s, and he would go on to do some good solo stuff later. But as far as like whatever Led Zeppelin was done. They were doing nothing. They were a review act at that point. And meanwhile, we have White Jack making music, to my ears, as good as anything he made in 1999. So that's how I justify my absolutely ridiculous hot take title, which I'm probably going to choose, Jack White is better than Led Zeppelin, which I imagine he himself would be the most angry at. So let's go through the album a little bit, okay? Let's go through... This is a real rocky, rock album. I don't need to spend that much time breaking down the production choices or the songwriting. I will spend more time on the first song, which you can click to up there if I remember, which I rarely do these days, Old Scratch Blues. And it's interesting. It's sort of like even the title announces that it's going to be a blues rock album, kind of a throwback album. Scratch can mean money, but it can also be like a scratch. So like maybe it's like an old scratch that he needs to itch, or the blues of a scratch that there's multiple different things. But what really is the center of this is this guitar line. Beautiful, slinky, silky, descending riff. And you expect it to come right in with a Meg White style bashing of the cymbals, but it doesn't. Very solid John Bonham style shuffle. The whole thing builds as you'd sort of expect it to do. Jack White knows when to use what I call slurry chords. So, you know, if you have a guitar, you know, and you play a bar chord, you know, you can play the whole thing. And that sounds pretty good if it's in tune, which it's not, right? But you can also just do these two fingers. of slurry it around, you know, just kind of like play these, you sort of play the top two notes and then you mute the rest. So if I were to play the whole thing, it'd sound like this. Okay? That kind of rough, loose feel happens a lot throughout the album. And then the second half of the first verse, then we finally get the Jack White, White Jack, White Meg style of just bashing the cymbals. So who are the best drummers at bashing the cymbals? Meg White and Ringo Starr. Two great drummers who are not technically proficient, but excellent drummers. And the lyrics, I don't know. Are they deep? Are they not? What's going on here? They're just White Jack lyrics, you know? I think I need a tailor. This happens to me all the time. I'm cursing like a drunken sailor. I'll trade a nickel for a dime anytime. Great. Just good rock lyrics, straight, like just like turn of phrase, cliches. I don't know. He has a sort of BS quality to his lyrics, which I actually appreciate. You know, he's just trying to rock. In the second verse, he ends up almost, this is where I think it sounds a little kind of like he's trying to do almost rap. I mean, not quite, right? He's not like, my name is White Jack and I'm here to say, none of that stuff. It's more that he's like, the way he emphasizes certain words, there's a certain flow. It reminds me at times of his Detroit compatriot Eminem. Okay, so I don't think he's like trying super hard, but it reminds me of that. I don't know if this is like some kind of weird anti-Trump thing. I'll take you to the border and show you how you're going to be free. The machine's out of order. It stole my quarter. Now there's nothing left to take from me. I don't know. Another holy psycho trolling, so tell me how to stop this fool. I don't know. Maybe it's about that. Maybe it's not. It's sort of about suckers. You know, these suckers want to twist and shout. They're fighting it out. It seems to be vaguely about our current geopolitical situation. Maybe not. And then a beautiful instrumental break here. I'm telling you, this album's super well produced. I mean it. There's an organ, and then which is playing the chords, and the guitar. The riff comes back. And what's great about this riff is that it changes at times, and sometimes the riff, you know, so it does that, and then at certain times it'll do the kind of slurry chords that I was talking about. The third verse is basically the first verse repeated, so there's almost a chorus to this song. Then the drums start doing this awesome thing, which is riding this snare, and the organ becomes like these little percussive elements. You're gonna find out, just becomes more and more emphatic. You're gonna find out everything you need to give for free to be a sellout. I declare that a good lyric. Everything you need to give for free to be a sellout. That is the current state. That is the current state of the attention economy. You have to figure out what to give away for free in order to be a sellout. Which reminds me of the importance of, you probably don't need a VPN. It's my sponsor this week. Actually, the football season's coming up. I'd like to remind you, don't bet on football, okay? Don't do online gambling, okay? If you have to gamble, go find a bookie, okay? Or actually do the work to go somewhere. Never gamble on your phone. You're always going to lose. But don't gamble in general. You're just going to lose. Nothing in the world is free. At least not for me. Next track is called Bless Yourself. More of the great slurry chords. More just great Zeppelin-y feel. And Zeppelin's not making it. At times, the chugging here also reminds me of Rage Against the Machine. At times on this album reminds me of that. I don't know. I don't know if he's like imitating different people who were around when he was around. Almost kind of metal here. His voice is super strong. That's how I'm feeling. Different register of his voice. It's kind of a glammy, really nice undistorted guitar here. And then it just bashes. That's how I'm feeling. Rough now. Great guitar solo. One thing I like about Jack White's guitar solos, they don't make you wait. He's like, here's my guitar, so it's over. What? Very quick. The four notes on the bass are, so there's this little bit here where these four notes are traced by the bass and a synthesizer. Very cool sound here. Just builds really nice. The voices in the back. It's like jumping around left and right, and then goes super hard rocking. And this was where I said, oh God, I want to see this in concert. And then I remembered. And then I remembered all the dudes who I would see with their Try Hard concert t-shirts. And I decided I wouldn't do it. By the way, does it sound like I'm making fun of you or someone you know? I'm making fun of myself. I used to be a Try Hard concert wearer, okay? I must have gone to a Neil Young show in like 2010 wearing like a 1995 Neil Young tour concert shirt. I would totally do that. It's rough on rats, if you're asking. I don't know if this is connected to I Think I Smell a Rat. It feels like it could be this cool, weird, crunchy, produced guitar thing. I really like it. The slides descending, the drums are bashing. Sounds sort of like a Led Zeppelin outtake. Like, there's different ways of playing slide guitar. And obviously they all go back to Elmore James and all that stuff. And Muddy Waters and all that, right? But the way that Led Zeppelin would do it, and I don't know exactly who they were copying. They had to be copying somebody. But there's a kind of like just general sloppy bar chord feel, and that's the way that he uses it. Just sort of like bar chords are when you play a guitar and like you can make one shape and that can just go to any different note. So it's a very simple way of just making a sound. You can't do a diminished ninth with a slide on a slide guitar. Cool kind of double slide guitar solo. I can't wait to see my comment section with all you Neely heads telling me how you can do a diminished ninth with a slide. Maybe you can't. I can't. I kind of doubt that White Jack can either. Then we get to Archbishop Harold Holmes. Is this a song about a hypocritical priest? Is this a song about a hypocritical priest? Come on, White Jack. That is great. How many songs are there? The only thing he could have done that's better is there was a rash of songs in the 60s when all the white British dudes who were ripping off black blues musicians ran out of stuff to sing about, where there's like this whole series of songs about people who are cheap and don't want to spend money. You're probably thinking, baby, you're a rich man, but money, 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 bags, money, there goes Mr. Stingy by The Who. Like, so many bands had songs that were just like, there's a person who doesn't want to spend a lot of money, and it's just a goofy, funny thing when you have nothing else to sing about. So is this kind of thing, taking shots at false prophets, at estimated profits if you're a deadhead. But I gotta admit, the way he delivers it's quite funny. You will come blessed with the big money blessing. You will be doubted by all the unbelievers. All the things I'm addressing, you must tell 7 friends. You must first bring 7 friends, and don't be selfish. Keep this all to yourself, and don't eat shellfish. By the way, of all the religious restrictions that hurt me, the shellfish one is tough. I feel bad. If you are in a religious sect that tells you not to eat shellfish, you're really missing out. Bacon I can do without, but lobster and scallops, man, is life worth living at that point? I don't know. And so it's a fun idea because, let's be truthful, any kind of thing you're talking about, the way false prophets try to drag people in, the world that we live in, all of those tools are now being used by grifters, influencers, politicians. The techniques that used to be used to separate people from their money in the name of Jesus are now being used to separate people from their money in the name of the grind set or of the political dreams. Bombing out, hard-hitting wah-wah stuff here. Again, sort of Rage Against the Machine-y. I don't know, more slide guitar, great vocal production. I'm bombing out. This one line, okay. You're handing out sacrifices for anyone who wants less than more or more than less, more or less. There's nothing left to sacrifice. Is this a political comment? Is this a deep political comment about the way that the people with the least amount are asked to sacrifice the most in all cases, whether it's military conflicts or the wealth gap? I don't know. Or is he just like throwing words around? I can't tell. He does say born by the river. Not a fan of that. That's like an old, blues trope. I don't know. What's the rumpus? So if you don't know, there used to be a thing. I don't know if it's still this way, but in some American homes, there used to be a room called a rumpus room. I didn't have a rumpus room growing up. It's not that my parents couldn't afford to have a rumpus room. They just didn't want the hassle of whatever a rumpus would be. My parents' goal was like just no hassles. So just don't deal with anything. That would be great. If I didn't have to take you anywhere or do anything, that would be just sweet, okay? So like rumpus rooms were like, anyways, that's what I think of when I think of rumpus rooms. But what I like about this is the drums again. Led Zeppelin influences can come in all different ways, right? Come to think of it, this album cover is kind of phallic. Have you ever thought of that before? Oh, the humanity. So, you can think of, the slide guitar and the kind of high-pitched, whiny singing, all that stuff. Cool. But what interests me more is the drums in this song, because it's a fairly straightforward drum beat. It's basically just doom, doom, gat, doom, 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 gat, doom. But it's just a little bit behind the beat. And that's what Bonham could do better than, as far as I know, anybody. Just play a little bit behind the beat to give you that hard feeling. It's just great. I got a feeling that truth has become opinion these days. Is he just spending a lot of time on the internet, worried about how the internet's changing people? And then it seems to be about him and about his music. What's the rumpus? When will the label dump us? They tried to stump us. Now what genre will they lump us? So, doesn't he own his own label? Is he signed to a dude who signed to another dude who signed to another dude? I thought he was the dude. Tonight Was a Long Time Ago. That's the Yogi Berra / Ringo Starr style of music naming, of kind of a funny, contradictory title. Even the lyrics, sometimes it's over before it begins. Nice guitar solo here as well. Beautiful bridge with these traced guitar lines and these compressed guitar sounds. Very nice. Underground. Finally something a little different. Of all the things that I miss with White Jack is, you remember the song, We're Gonna Be Friends? Is that what the song's called? You know the song. Dun, 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 dun. Like, it was kind of like a breather in all of the... I needed a little bit more of a breather from this album, but it's cool because you can feel the Nashville influence on here, a kind of country sound, semi-country sound, kind of soft and cool. Almost sounds like a pedal steel, but it's not. I think it's just a slide. Super resolving. He does a lot of resolving stuff. That's a thing with open tuning. I think he's using open tuning on here, where you can just kind of resolve on something, and the vocals are kind of funny, ends up in both ears, where he's kind of screaming in the back, and the slide guitar here is, again, sort of if you know Led Zeppelin super well, there's a B-side that was called Traveling Riverside Blues, which was a cover of, was it Muddy Waters? I think it was a Muddy Waters cover. I can't quite remember which of the old guys it was a cover of. But you had to buy the box. Back in the day, there was no internet, so you had to find that song, and it was only available on the box set. And I was too much of a hipster to buy a box set, because I just, I wanted to buy all their albums and have all their albums, So like Traveling Riverside, my friend Ben had that song. That was how good that song was. It was like, I knew which of my friends had that song, so I could listen to it, and it sounds like that. And there's a cool little solo that sounds like a kazoo. I mean, it's a guitar, but it sounds like a kazoo. Number One with a Bullet. I don't know if that's a reference to Frank Zappa. Frank Zappa used to sing that in his lyrics a lot. Not a lot of overlap with Frank White and Frank Zappa. I mean, Frank White. For all of you Biggie fans who are watching this, your ears just pricked up. I don't know. This is like, I got information hanging on a thread, so pull it. Kind of cheesy lyrics, some assassination lyrics. I don't know. Nice little wah-wah moment. Morning at Midnight, again, sort of like contradictory Hard Day's Night, Yogi Berra, Ringo style lyrics, Ringo style drumming, just hitting super hard. I just love the recording on here, nice glitchy sounds in the bridge. Another great Zeppelin riff in the outro. Then we get to Missionary, and maybe we're talking about what the album's about here. Maybe we are, because it seems like this is a song about like remembering what it used to be like to be famous. I'm on a mission, baby, is the chorus. I'm like a missionary, put me in that position, will you? And I'll make you miss me again. Will you ever miss me again? So maybe it's talking about love, but it feels more to me like he's just missing being famous, because probably White Jack can walk down the street in most cities and not get hassled. I'm an affection addict, but I'm getting better at it. I'm living in your attic, but I won't be there for long because I got a brand new song, Sing It. It seems to be about the relationship of wanting to be famous and hassled. Terminal Arch Enemy Endling has some dogs in the back. I got 2 dogs behind me. It seems like they're barking, swirling, crashing cymbals, droney, kind of resolving. How do you feel when you felt it all? What do you see when you've seen it all? It's interesting. Maybe this is sort of a midlife song, sort of about like, what's the point of life when you've already done all these awesome things? I've seen it all, from Falling Water to Waterfalls. I assume that's a reference to Falling Water, the house by Frank Lloyd Wright. I've never been. It's really close to where my brother lives in West Virginia. We've never gone. I'm quite frustrated. If you're ever in Rochester, New York, The easternmost prairie house made by Frank Lloyd Wright is here. It's beautiful. It's on East Boulevard off of East Ave. So check it out if you're ever here, after you go to the Record Archive. And just full on like Zeppelin-y second part. You know, they should be paying royalties at this point. He should just be paying royalties to Led Zeppelin, who themselves should be paying royalties to Howlin' Wolf. So that's, you know, anyways. What's the point of being free if I'm being alone? That's like one of the great questions, you know? What do you want? A friend of mine's brother used to say, you have to choose between being free and being annoyed. Like, that's the thing. Like, I mean, you either have to be lonely or annoyed. Those are your two choices in life. But I don't know. I'm not super annoyed at my wife. Hardly ever, actually. You can actually have both. You can be happily married. That does exist. Okay, I'm trying to find my Patreons because they help me to buy music. I don't know if I'll buy this music. I might buy this album. I don't know. They help me buy music and diapers. I need a lot more of diapers than I do of music at this point, but we need everything, you know. There's no house without music, at least not one I want to live in. Got some new folks on there. Sorry, I'm running out of space. I hope you see yourself. And thanks for, and Bowden Braga and Zach both asked for shout-outs. I give shout-outs. Look, see, my dog knows when it's ready. He knows when we're ready to go. He knows. He knows we're ready to go, and pretty soon he's going to get some food. Huh? Was that a long video, Toby? It was a long video, Toby. All right. Until next time, there's the camera.